Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Manifest Incredible Love Summit. This is the second series. This is so exciting for me because I'm having a new round of speakers who are going to go a little more deeper into the love, the intimacy, how you can create incredible love in your life. Today, I have Anita DeFrancesco, and I'm so excited to interview her. She has a podcast, but I'm going to let her do the introduction for herself. So, Anita, welcome to the stage.
Hello, Nikki. Nice to meet you. And I'm so excited to be here with you today. And this is a really wonderful show that you have. So I'm glad to be a part of it. And I'll just give you a little bit of background about me. My name is Anita DeFrancesco. I'm a somatic psychotherapist, a love and relationship coach. I'm also the founder of Tantra Wisdom. So I'm a Tantra teacher, and kinepathics, emotional cleansing work is another thing that I have founded. And I'm also a two-time author, a two-time journalistic award winner for stories I've written over the years. That I have written two books. One of my books that would be for what we're going to be talking about today is Live Free. It's a book about my life and how I came to be into this path of consciousness, in this path of healing, in this path of love, in this path of truth of who I am. And I just put it in a book, and I put a bunch of exercises in there, like tantric exercises, different things that people can at least get inspired by, or that they can want to find a direction. Because a lot of time when it comes to the healing path of who we are and where we've come from, and if you have a staple kind of self inside that healing part of you that's very prominent, you can find a direction, but you have to do the healing first. So
Mm.
we have to find our way to heal so that we can share the love and the excitement of the newness about ourselves, of recreating yourself. So my book is called Live Free, Recreate, and Liberate Your Life. So I teach people that, have emotional baggage, how to have, first, it's all about emotions, how to uplift the emotions, how to break the patterns, how to get rid of all of that so that you can have normal, healthy, loving relationships with anyone, your beloved out there, your parents, your children. Relationships exist in all forms. And when we understand the foundation and the value of a relationship, this is where we can find the true love that exists. So my background is my background in education, but I was one to come from many awakenings in my life. As a child, I was very sick. I had rheumatic heart disease, so I was on a lockdown for 6 months in a hospital, and
Oh.
that's not good for a 9-year-old. Because children at that age, well, I'm thinking about our pandemic lockdown, it could be similar, but when I was very sick, I had heart disease. And what I did was I opened my heart through undulated exercises that I did in the bed so that I could sort of help myself, because medicine, they wanted to do surgery and they put me on all kinds of medicine, because when a child has rheumatic fever, which is non-existent today because we have come so advanced in medicine, but they die. A lot of the children around me died. And that is where I got my inspiration, where I became awakened. And that was one of my biggest awakenings that helped me to open my heart and see that there is such a thing as love and there is no such thing as prejudice.
Mhm.
And so I had to learn that on my own. And the higher spirits just chose me in a way. And so I grew up sort of different, sort of on the outside with others, because I had this certain thing that I cultivated. And that is the basis of my teachings and the path I chose, because I could have chose anything. And I've studied many things, broadcast journalism. I went to school for that, and that's where I wrote two books. And then the psychology and the love and relationship, the tantra, yoga, tantra, all of that is part of the spirit of getting into your emotions and your body and aligning all of these things: body, mind, spirit, soul, sex. And that's the path that I am on. And I have had many awakenings, but that was the most profound one. The one as a little girl at 9 years old, very sick. And so, yeah, you can take it from there if you like, Nikki.
My goodness, your first awakening was at 9, and I'm very curious how that led into understanding that emotions are a core part um, of how we relate to other people and how we can consciously create the life that we truly want, that freedom that we seek.
Well, as a 9 year old, you're innocent. So you haven't learned how to have boundaries. You haven't learned how to be hateful in the world yet because you're not in the, you're only 9. Hate is a learned behavior. Being, prejudice, all of these things, profiling people, hate. It's all part of hate. It has nothing to even do with like the word prejudice. It's just hate. And as a 9 year old, when you're sick in a bed, you're desperate. You're really desperate because you're alone and you're dying. You watch children. I had witnessed at least 10 children being brought out in body bags at that time. And I happen to have been the only white child amongst African Americans in that 1966 in the greater Philadelphia area, which was a lot of the African American children had rheumatic fever then. And it was just that year that when I entered the hospital, I was in the wing, it was all the girls' wing, and I was the only Caucasian. And it was kind of weird because at that time, we had a lot of things going on in the world where we weren't really interacting with each other. But at that point, I had to grab out to them, and they, as they did me, so that we could heal each other through love. And that is where that hate and that prejudice didn't grow up with me. It never grew up with me. When I grew up, when I got out of the hospital, my best friends were the Black kids, the African American children, where that was unheard of in 1966 in Philadelphia. So I had really had a step up. I was ahead of myself in as far as my shamanic learnings or my spiritual learnings, we'll say. I usually don't say shamanic, but it's all part of the same thing, my spiritual learning. So at that time, when these children, when I laid in the bed, and of course, when you have rheumatic fever, your fever is 105. It's almost like COVID. You have this like high fever, and you're not allowed out of bed, except that your joints are swollen, and you get heart disease from this. And the heart disease is why the children had died. Because medicine and heart stuff wasn't even advanced in 1966, but we've come a long way. And a lot of my friends, when we left the hospital, the day I left the hospital, I'll never forget. I went to see, it makes me emotional because I went to see a little girl, one of the little girls in the bed, and her parents were there. And she died right in my arms. Like that was the kind of experience I had. I feel like it's a war, like how the people in the Ukraine and these children growing up in war, it was like a war zone for me, but that wasn't something we were familiar with then or experienced at all. I mean, so the little girl died in my eyes, and her parents like looked at me like as if I was lucky or gift, but I never looked at it that way. I was gifted. I was gifted by God to have life. And that's why I value life. And I feel like the way I see people in the world, how greedy they are and how hateful and everyone wants, and they just don't understand. They're just constantly on this cycle of running, and it's all about hate, and they haven't really realized what love is. So back then, when the little girl died in my arms, and 10 kids over the time I was there, I witnessed them all being taken out. I felt so gifted. And when I walked out the door, my father took me out, and I looked back and I said, life is a gift. And that was like the slogan I came up with, life is a gift. So I was very empowered at 9, so I had to go back into the inner city, into the hood where I grew up in Philly, back to the school with the regular kids who didn't understand who I was. They looked at me differently because something had cultivated in me. I had an awakening. I had a shamanic awakening. I had Kundalini awakening, whatever it was, it naturally happened. And I think it has to do with the emotional intelligence that you are gifted with before it gets frozen, before your parents abuse you over the years, because then they grow up to be frozen, and then they have patterns of attracting abusive relationships, of attracting abusive people. or I hate myself. So people go on with that head noise. I hate myself, and they lose their self-esteem and their self-worth. So for me, I had already cultivated this, although I experienced all of those things later on in life, going back into the family home where there was not much love and there was some abuse going on, and all of those patterns that, oh, I hate myself, I'm not worthy, because my parents, they just weren't, they didn't have whatever they wanted. Their lives were, they loved each other, but didn't know how to love. They didn't know how to be intimate. And that was another lesson for me when I saw how deeply they were twin flames and stayed together for 20 years. But there was domestic violence, and there was where my parents fought each other, and there was so much hate that my brother became a schizophrenic out of all of this because he couldn't deal with it. But see, me, I had already been consciously taken by the spirits, by the angels, to be able to face this. And this is what a lot of people go through. There's no really, a lot of families are not happy. A lot of children, there's a lot of divorce. Come on, a lot of people are being raised by one parent these days. But there is domestic violence, and there is all that other stuff, abusive, sexual, all that stuff that goes on. And people survive that. They prevail. We have a lot of things available to us. We're stronger today. But for me, I was sort of like, I had the tools. And that's what I want to teach people, a skill set, tools of how to have this. Now, as a child, it's hard. You can't get out of the way. You're there. But as I grew, I became patterned and frozen. But I understood it. I understood because I had already had that year of being 9 years old, opening my heart and reaching out to hospital mates to say, love me. I need love to survive. I need love so I don't die. So that's where I am, Nikki.
I love your story because it's really deeply rooted in feeling love in everything, not just in your romantic relationships, but understanding the core need of love and what you've gone through. Oh my goodness, I'm like, that's traumatic for a 9 year old, but the lessons you got out of it, I'm very interested in exploring a little bit more about, how these patterns cultivate and we start attracting relationships that, they repeat the same patterns as we would in childhood, right? The I'm not worthy enough. So we attract partners that make us feel that insecurity over and over again. The karmic partners you mentioned, twin flames, things like that. Could you elaborate a little bit more for people who aren't sure? They just know, okay, I'm attracting the wrong types of people constantly into my relationships, and why? How can I break that cycle?
Well, each and every relationship is a growth. We are growing and learning. And relationships are important to have, whether they're the right one or not. And you're young, you want to date, you want to go out. We have hormones, we want to have fun, but there has to be communication there. The key to, there's today, sex and love and relationships are much freer. People are much more open. I practice Wilhelm Reich's work. It's emotional release work. He coined the sexual revolution, which was in my generation, where the sexual revolution is that people can go out and have sex and not worry about emotional connection. But then that left us with a lot of people with emotions that were armored, sexual armor, emotional armor. So the armor now is different on each and every one of us according to the experiences you've had as a child and the love that you had in your home life. A lot of people are frozen. They grow up because and these become patterns, and they continually live in these patterns where they attract the same type of person, not the wrong one, but the same type. But what the goal is what we teach is that you're to learn from each and every one of these relationships and grow. But what can continually happen if the person isn't conscious or aware is that they will continually attract the same type of relationship. It's familiar. It's something that's a pattern that needs to be broke. So they need the emotional work. That's where we begin. And that's why I went into Tantra. Tantra wisdom is my trademark domain work that I coined for my particular work because I feel like I have wisdom. And I do. I mean, when I was 9, I had wisdom. But so Tantra it was a word that just came to me. And then instantly, of course, I went, everything that comes to you, you've got to domain it, you have to trademark it. living in LA 20 years as I did. I'm in Philly now. So just to part of my resume is that I did live in LA 20 years, which was where I got most of my spiritual education, because LA is so profound. It has so many, it's diverse. It has a lot of things going on there. And that's where I really got the bulk of my spiritual work. But I have to say that the reason I went to Tantra is because when I saw my parents, how much they loved each other, but they didn't know how to have this love, this intimacy, and keep it. They fought, they beat each other up physically, and it was, they just didn't have communication. But what they had was, they had baggage from their childhood. They had anger, they had sadness that was unexpressed, was unleashed. And in their time, now they were born in the 1940s, it wasn't a thing to go to therapy or go to spiritual classes,
Yeah.
not as much as it is now. So the young people today coming up, we have so much more opportunity out there, that I think that all couples need to get into some spiritual work, such as Tantra or even psychology, counseling, because we are going to come from a foundation of something that was said to us as a child. Maybe the parents talked bad about sex. Maybe they thought, some kids grow up, their parents say sex is dirty, and they grow up with this image and this blockage, and they can't even get intimate with someone. So the armor begins up in the eyes, and it moves all the way down, or it might be in the sexual area. And then when they get with a partner, they don't know how to be. So there are classes that we teach on how to be in a relationship, how to communicate, how to appreciate each other. This is what Tantra teaches, how to give each other those compliments, keep the courting alive. A lot of time people go all out of their way in the beginning. Oh, everything is so perfect. And then all of a sudden they take each other for granted. That no longer exists. And that's why they come to Tantra, so that they can re-spark the passion, re-spark the relationship again, to bring it back to where it was. But one of the keys is emotional work first, is letting go of the baggage from years past or from prior relationships that can carry over into the next relationship, which they do all the time. The
Mhm.
new one you love, but then you hate them because of what the other one did. And it's a cycle. And then the communication, which is very important. And eye gaze, looking at each other's eyes, and really, people text now for intimacy.
Yeah.
They text, they don't pick up the phone and call each other. That is so important. They must break that pattern. That's becoming another pattern where your emotions are drying up and they're getting stuck and unstimulated. So the emotional stimulation, I'll actually pick up the phone and call people because I want to have that emotional stimulation. I want to hear a voice. I want to like, vent a little and scream a little, or whatever it is for that moment, just so I feel like that's where it is. And my parents were my teachers because they loved each other dearly. Of course, my father remarried again to another woman for 40 years, and they lasted till the end. But
Wow.
with my mother, it was such a divine love that they had, but they didn't know how to do it. They had so much baggage, and they were coming in a time where women didn't work, women weren't in the work world, they were voiceless, they didn't have the voice to speak back or request what they wanted or ask, or form their own, like, take charge of my life kind of thing that women do today.
Mhm.
So it was a sad pattern that I watched, but I learned. And I said, oh, if they were here today, I would want to be their teacher.
I'm very interested because I see now a lot of the roles have reversed in a way where women are more bold and they do take on a lot of masculine qualities. So it does hinder a relationship as well, where women are very controlling. But I feel that it also comes from emotional baggage where they don't feel safe to ask for support. And we're kind of taught, okay, especially in my era, my mom always told me you had to be independent. You need to control your husband. You need to control the finances. And it was this fear that the men would take over our lives and we would have no power. So I did experience that kind of dynamic in my relationship where I started to not really respect my husband as my husband, but more so I had to take control of my life and have the pants in the relationship. And that was something I deconditioned along the way of, okay, how do I ease back into the feminine of receiving and being okay to receive love and to ask for help and not feel that this is a weakness, because that was what I was taught. If you express emotions, if you express any kind of vulnerability, or it was considered a weakness.
Well, that's what you were taught. It was considered a weakness, the vulnerability. Is that what you were taught?
Yeah, my mom was a very dominant, controlling person, and that was something she taught all of her daughters. And that was something I observed growing up, was that she wore the pants in the family. And that success and money was prized over relationships or having intimate
Mm.
relationships. So I didn't have a very good emotional connection when I was younger.
So that does happen. In Tantra, we all have a masculine and a feminine in us, regardless of your gender or sexual orientation out there. We all have a masculine and a feminine polarity that go back and forth. I might be on my masculine today because I have a lot of things to do, run around, lift things, go to the gym. But then I want to be on my feminine because maybe I'm going to go get a massage, or I'm going to meet a beloved, or anything. I'm going to sit at the beach. When I'm sitting at the beach, I want to be in the feminine energy. So we have to find that balance between the masculine and feminine. And what is happening in the world is that a lot of women, like you said, or even men, it can go either way. One wants to wear the pants. There's this push and pull in every relationship. Push, pull, push, pull. But one wants to wear the pants because they want to control the money. They want to, in your situation where mom, you need to control the money, you need to wear the pants, but then that takes away, which I'm looking at Brady and his wife, Tom Brady, right now,
Uh-huh.
who's the football player. Giselle is his wife. They're getting a divorce, but she wears the pants with the money, and she has more money than him. And this guy is such a vulnerable soul, and he's just starting to come out of playing football. He's retiring now. And when I look at him and I look at his face, I see the vulnerable in him. He's the feminine in the relationship.
Yeah.
She's the masculine. There's a masculine and a feminine. It sounds like in your relationship, you're probably the masculine. And this is okay. But if you want to have that, you want to choose to be, I'm the masculine in my life. Okay. But I make sure that I get my feminine out there when I'm with the lover or doing this or that. I keep working at that because I had to be the masculine as a sick child, as a growing up in domestic violence with parents, a schizophrenic brother. I had to be the masculine, but I worked my whole life to get my feminine alive. Now, as far as money and all, that's individual and that's all relative. Everyone has their own thing with that money and children and how that all works. But putting that aside, when you're basing your life around the material, that kind of energy is going to be who you are. So you have to work more at your feminine of practicing how to be the receiver. Oh, let my man take me. Be the one, because receive. So in Tantra, we teach giving and receiving. And when you give and receive, you learn how to balance this out. Aside from materialistic things, that's something people can work out, but you still want to be able to say, oh, I want my man to take me and receive me and have me because I'm going to let my hair down. I'm going to let myself be free here. And once you cultivate that or learn how to do that, I studied acting in LA for many years. Not that I'm acting when I do it. It's really a natural for me to just, I want to be taken. But this is one of the reasons why over the years that it was very difficult to become a married woman, because I had a lot of male energy. And a
Mhm.
lot of the men in my generation now, I'm in a different generation than you, they weren't in their feminine energy. They didn't have that spiritual stuff. I'm 65. So that is my age. So that generation is, we're coming into the modern world. If you adjust and adapt to the modern world as I do, but I have to look back at the men that are my age that come from my time, and they're not so much in the feminine energy. They're strictly the man. And so a woman that carries that is going to have a hard time. And that's why I have to humble down. If all the years that I have come through, but even now in this day and age, and even though I'm mature, it's still a thing. It's a stigma. So control, There is no control. When you control your partner, you are controlling your emotions and you have fear deep down inside. So, what I would address is to work with your fear or someone's fear and to allow them to be able to trust. A lot of trusting exercises, accepting and surrendering. Right, but don't give your money away. I know. I'm on that page too. I have control of my money. And that's important. In this day and age, come on, we have to be. But we have to come to terms where it's not something that you have to worry about. It's like car insurance. I'm not worried when I drive, I have car insurance.
Yeah.
But you have your own insurance about being in control, but that's affecting the love, you say. So you need to do some work with the fear and having this trust. And it's not about trusting the person. It's really about trusting yourself and knowing that the universe is with you and you are in control. But I don't even use the word control. I just say that I'm in charge of me. I'm in charge of me. But I will open myself up for you to be in charge of me, my partner. I will open myself up and be vulnerable. And you seem like you're vulnerable. You seem like you have a sensitive side to you.
Oh, thank
And
you. I mean, I've worked on it. I would say my awakening was around 2 years ago, right around like middle of COVID. And that was when I truly learned what love is and really split from the conditioning of fear. Because that was like a longing. It was like a longing of searching for somebody to understand me and not see my vulnerability as weakness. And so I found a community of
mm,
people who they were just strangers, a meditation group who really opening up to what unconditional love is. And it spurred on to the rest of my journey, becoming a coach. Like I did meditation for two months, and I became a coach after my meditation. I said I want to hold space for other people like this to be seen, to be heard, to be loved unconditionally, and to feel the emotions and the shame and the guilt and all of the things that other people have said you're not good enough. You're not going to
that
be
head
successful.
voice. Yes,
Yeah.
the head voice.
And
Well, the unconditional love does have boundaries too.
mhm.
It depends on how much how much of that. I mean, I love someone unconditionally, but if it's something that's harming me that they do, I may put a boundary on it. We want to love unconditionally, but there and the vulnerableness is there, but the vulnerableness is something that you start to learn how to practice in your sensuality. So the more in tantra you work your senses, you become more intimate, more not even sexual, but the senses, keeping the senses alive. That is part of unlocking the vulnerable in the mindset, the character, like say the character of fear, the character of sadness, the character of jealousy or love or hate. So, but the senses, once the senses are connected to the body brain, to the head brain, then you're able to experience your fullness. So really the vulnerable becomes like something that you ferment or you cultivate, becomes you. So it's not something like I'm going to turn on, I'm going to be vulnerable because I'm going to make love tonight, or I'm going to be vulnerable because I met a new guy and I want to be this silly little. It's something that you want to have in you so that you can enjoy it on your own without anyone. That that sensual, your own happiness, your own bliss, being happy in the aloneness.
is
So
I'm very curious like, for Tantra. I know you mentioned, somatic, which is more of the senses. So how does one kind of explore that and enjoy that on their own? And how does that tie into their relationships or help expand their relationships?
well, the self-love, okay, is part of it all. And when you have this relationship to your own feelings, not the relationship to someone else's feelings to completely complete you, the relationship to your own feelings, is something that I learned when I was in that children's heart hospital at 9, that I didn't have anyone else. So I had to form this relationship to myself, talking to the inner child. And once you have this relationship to yourself and your self-love and your senses, you can enjoy things and do things. You have to be able, in order to have really a successful, you know, long-term, say, marriage or relationship, there has to be this self-love that you have on your own without your partner, whether your partner is there in your life or not. And you build this love, this connection to your the relationship to the self. And then once this starts to cultivate into the senses, you're rediscovering yourself, you're reinventing yourself, you're not reinventing, recreating, and you're finding out who you are. And then when you're with your person or any people, that you're able to be a little bit more charismatically independent on your own, in a sense,
Yeah.
that you have your own set of, doesn't matter what they say, you're not going to be on an attack or defense feeling. It doesn't matter how they look at you, because you're not going to feel self-judged, or you're not going to self-judge yourself, or you're not going to feel judged by them the way sometimes people tend to look at us in a dismal, a dismal kind of way, or some dismay way, whatever they want to look at you and kind of give you that judgmental feeling. So these are the things that once you have yourself, those things don't exist. You don't see them anymore. And that's part of the senses, connecting to the senses. That's your aliveness.
Oh, I really love that. I love that because the more you connect to yourself, the more, well, the less the outside world can affect you, the more you stay true, right? The more you stay true. And that's where we start magnetizing everything towards us. Because when we stay true to ourselves, whatever aligns with whatever we stay true to comes towards us as well.
So you become this magnet of what it is that you want to attract.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really done psychically. It is done aligning all of these things and working with your consciousness and awareness, attracting what you want in life. And it will come once you're in that high, keep climbing the ladder of the higher power. And then you will see the truth. And this is what it's all about, with healing.
I love the healing work because and in the moment it feels difficult because you're facing all these emotions that you and old patterns. But once you release it, then all the good stuff gets to come in. All the things that feel aligned gets to come in. And that's why I say, the more you work on yourself, the more your love will come to you instead of trying to work to please other people or trying to work for love. You are love, and the love naturally comes because you are already love.
Yes, and one of the goals is to, or one of the challenges is to get people to be able to get on that path, so that to sort of inspire them with the information so that they can understand and get on the path. And that's the challenge for people, the belief.
Yeah. But I'm very grateful that you're here because you are spreading this message. It's been a beautiful message for the show. Thank you, Anita, for being here. And also, would you share your free gift or your website so that the audience can connect with you?
Sure. My website, tantrawisdom.com. If someone is interested in getting my Live Free book, which is about how I got on the path, they can contact me there. There's an email in there, and I'll send them a free copy of the book, and or maybe an introductory session if you wanted to. That can be, it can be either or, an introductory session on Zoom if they're not local, or if they're local, they can see me in the New York area, Philadelphia, and that would be the free gift. Yes.
Amazing.
Discover Joyous Love is my podcast, Discover Joyous Love. So I have this wonderful podcast. I'm interviewing people. I'm also just talking myself about things, about different topics. So they can tune into that on Spotify.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
very much for
sharing.
having me.
I, by the way, Anita was sharing some of her podcast episodes with me before the show, and the names, the titles just sound so juicy. So I highly recommend you guys to check that out. But I will include her website link right below our interview so that you guys can reach out to her to take advantage of her freebies. Thank you again, Anita, for being here. Thank you, everybody else, for joining
Okay.
our
Thank
incredible
you.
show. And with that said, stay tuned for the next episode to cultivate more incredible love in your life.